Winnipeg is very excited to introduce this very special guest. He is a software developer, IBM Honorary Cloud Advisor, author, algorithmist, keynote speaker, and YouTuber. And he happens to be only 13 years old. Please welcome Tanmay Bashki. Tanmay, I couldn't memorize all the titles, and I think you have another one to add to the list?
Yes, cognitive developer. I work with cognitive computing and cognitive technologies like IBM Watson.
Oh my goodness. All right, okay, so it's like dumbing it down for 101 on computers.
Yes.
Age 5, you were coding. So for some of us out there, what is coding?
Well, coding is essentially writing down instructions, a list of instructions for computers to be able to do anything. Because if you think about it, computers are dumb. They can't do anything. In order to make a computer do something, you need to tell it exactly what to do when something happens, or if something else happens, you have to do this, you have to tell it exactly what can happen, and computers need to know everything beforehand. They cannot create things like animals or humans can. And so that's what coding essentially is.
Wow, now your dad happens to be a computer programmer, so I guess a special bond was soon developed. Age 9, you created your own app?
Yes, my first iOS app, T-Tables, which helps you learn your multiplication tables, was accepted into the iOS App Store, in fact, on Valentine's Day of 2013.
Okay, so I was doing a bit of snooping about you, and I'm interested in this Watson and this whole face recognition and getting into high secure areas.
Yes. Well, essentially, before I begin, though, I'd have to kind of explain what Watson is in the first place. And in order to explain what Watson is, I'd have to explain what cognitive computing is. So, essentially, cognitive computing is a technology that allows computers to learn like animals. Mm-hmm. As I was saying before, computers are dumb. They can't do anything. They can't learn like animals can. But the cognitive computing is trying to change that and allow computers to essentially learn like animals. So, a really small example could be, let's say you have a pet dog, right? Mm-hmm. And he does something that you don't like. You give him a negative consequence, like timeout, and he doesn't like that. And so in his mind, he's creating that link that, hey, this action leads to a negative outcome, so I'm not going to do that again. But when he fetches a stick or does something nice, you give him a reward. And then he makes that link in his mind that, hey, fetching a stick means good consequence. And so whenever the situation arises again in the future, I will, try and fetch the stick. And so he's able to learn those. And let's say he repeats a mistake once or twice, that link in his mind gets strengthened, and he makes sure never to make that mistake again. And so essentially what we're doing here, and something else remarkable about animals and their brain, mm-hmm. is that they're able to then take an action that they've never done before, ever, in a situation that's never arisen before, and run it through their brain and say, hey, it's similar to these actions that I've done before, similar to these ones, not similar to these, and they're able to classify that, hey, this was most probably be bad for me or be good for me, right? And then they're able to make the decision of what to do next. And so that's what we're trying to bring to computers in order to be able to make computers make decisions for themselves, which is what IBM Watson is trying to do. And once computers can make decisions for themselves, learn from their mistakes, learn from things that they've done good in the past, and learn from that past experience, they can actually be used and implemented to understand things like natural language and do things like facial recognition.
Wow, so are we going down a slippery slope? Are we going to be soon replaced by computers built by Tanmay?
Well, this is actually a question that a lot of people get asked in the cognitive computing field generally, that will everything be replaced by computers? Well, I'd have to say no, because if you think about it, that's why it's called artificially intelligent, like artificial intelligent. Computers aren't actually intelligent, they're artificially intelligent. They've been created by humans, so I don't think it's going to be very possible to actually have computers that are smarter than humans. Instead, artificial intelligence and this sort of cognitive computing should be used to enhance the intelligence of other humans and animals, etc.
My goodness, I am talking to a little Einstein. Okay, so let's now talk about yourself, the journey that you've been on in the last few years. Mm-hmm. When do you have downtime, and when are you actually just a plain old 13-year-old?
Well, if you're asking what I like to do apart from coding, well, might shock you, but I actually do some other stuff apart from coding, which, I mean, I like to do things like table tennis, biking is good, but then again, in Canada the weather sometimes doesn't allow for that. Things like flying kites is fun, recording YouTube videos.
Yes.
As you know, you said, I'm a YouTuber as well. I have a YouTube channel where I like to share my knowledge with over like 4,300 subscribers and over 106 videos. In fact, most of these videos are about cognitive computing, how you can use them in your applications. In fact, not just how you can use IBM Watson and how you can implement your own custom machine learning algorithms with things like neat algorithms to evolve machine learning algorithms and neural networks. It's really interesting. And of course, I do some basic stuff on my YouTube channel as well with Swift and iOS apps and just a lot of different stuff, even math and science as well.
You know what? I'm not a real good kid with math, but you make it sound exciting. So you're going to have an interactive session now with some kids. I guess, how do you inspire them? Like us adults, we kind of know, like we aren't really inspired by people like you, but how do you inspire kids your age?
Well, it really does actually, if you think about it, it's not that I have to inspire them. It mainly just comes from within because, I mean, if you think about it, I'm not the one that's telling them, hey, you should code now. It's like I just introduce them to it, I show them this is what coding actually is, and then they take it from there and say, okay, this is interesting. I've never seen this before, but now that I have, this seems very interesting and I want to go ahead with it. And so, I mean, that's essentially how it works. So, I mean, actually, another really interesting fact is last week, or 2 weeks ago actually, I was invited by Apple to the UK to give a keynote at their Apple headquarters in the UK. And so essentially what happened, and so this was in London, and I was also invited to have a session and workshop as well as keynote at the Halcyon London International School. And so there were around, I'd say, 15 to 20 kids there in the workshop, and I just showed them, how you can create a Bluemix account, how you can train Watson, how you can create an iOS application with Watson, and how you can test Watson and improve Watson's performance. And so they had actually, most of them had never coded before, and so essentially they were terrified of coding. They just heard the name coding and they were terrified. But once I'd actually shown them an example of how you can code and given them the opportunity to take a look at it, they were actually quite interested, and now most of them are actually starting to get into coding. They actually contacted me on my email. I'm helping them out personally, one-to-one, and of course I think that if it comes from within, then you'll be able to code very nicely.
Oh my goodness gracious. Is there anything else that you want to accomplish in this short span before the year is over?
Well, one of my goals, that's sort of like a long-term goal, not like in this year specifically, is that I'd like to reach out to and help at least 100,000 aspiring kid coders and beginners. And in fact, I'm actually around 2,850 people there already.
Oh my God. All right. Well, maybe our future Prime Minister, but definitely, we are inspired by you, Tanmay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And you know what? We do have an opening at Shaw TV in our master control, and I think we could use you.
Thank you. I'd be glad.